Now, similar to having this GUI text here, I'm going to have a visual representation so that the player knows how much HP this little character still has. So I'm going to use a different approach. So instead of showing text, I'm going to have a bar that represents the health. Right, so it's quite common to have a health bar. Okay, so let's go to our art pack. I just want a sort of generic looking image. I think this bg.png file will work, this background file. So put that in your project. Okay, I'm just going to drag that in, rename this HP bar, and sort of just tentatively position it. I'm going to scale it as well, but instead of using the handles here on the sprite directly, I'm going to use the scaling tool, because the problem with using these 4 points is it keeps the ratio, the aspect ratio of the image, which is great, but that's not what I want to do here. I want to make it a little bit shorter, like that. I want to keep scale, X scale at 1, Y, let's do 0.25. Maybe something like that. Let's do 2. 2 is a bit much. Okay, let's do 1.5. Okay. The X scale at 1, and I'll show you in a minute why. But yeah, let's do that, and then I'm going to go back to my sprite. Make it a bit bigger. Okay. Again, I'm going to make Y a little bit smaller. Okay, so I think that looks alright. So I'm going to go with that. The reason why I wanted to keep this at 1 is because when later on we're going to calculate the percentage of the current health point, and I want to apply that directly to the scale, and this just sort of saves a bit of calculation there. In any case, it's kind of nice to keep the pixels to unit consistent throughout the game anyway, since all the art is sort of created together. This way we keep all the sizing ratios of things consistent from the original art style. Okay, so we have that. Another thing I want to do is I want to reposition the anchor point. What we're going to do is, as the player's HP gets smaller and smaller, we're going to scale on the axis, but we don't want it to sort of scale to the center. We want it to sort of scale to the left. So we are going to go back to this sprite that we're using, and for pivot we're going to just select left, apply. Let's reposition this again, and as you can see that the pivot point has been changed to the left. When we scale, it's going to give me that, it's going to give us that effect that we want to see, scaling to the left. Okay, so the next thing we do is simply calculate the percentage of remaining HP, and then applying that percentage to the X scale of this bar here. Okay, so let's do that. Let's first define a variable called HP bar scale percentage. It's a bit long, but let's go with that name. And we want to calculate that. And that's just simply going to be, let's find our float. Let's see, float operator will probably work better. Okay, float operator, which basically allows you to do all these different operations on two float numbers. So we're going to use, okay, so run into a bit of a problem here, as you can see that my HP originally is a integer, and now I want to float for my percentage. Let's see if I can find an int operator that will allow me to do that. Let's try that. Int operator. I'm going to use my HP. So that's going to be my current HP. So it might be 70 when I'm hit by an enemy. And integer 2, I'm going to use 100. And we're simply going to do HP divided by 100 to get the ratio of the HP. And let's move that. Store that. Now this is kind of annoying. I can't store that in an int, so scratch that. What I'm gonna have to do is, let's see. Actually, that's instead of changing HP to float, which we can certainly do. We can convert HP into a float variable. Let me show you how to do that actually, because obviously we can go back, change the HP variable to a float, and then change these two actions to use float add and float compare. But let's create a new variable called HP float, so that we know this is the same variable but it's a float instead of an int. And let's just convert it. Convert int to float. So we're going to convert HP to HP float. Okay. Now I can use my float operator. Now again, HP float divided by 100, which is the original health point. If you change this, then you want to make sure that you change that too. Divide this, and then we're going to save that, store that in the scale percentage variable. And finally, we're going to set scale. Okay, and we want to set the HP bar object's X scale to that percentage. So it's simply going to be 1 times this number, and the 1 is, this is why I wanted this to be 1, so I don't have to deal with, if this is 2, then I'll have to do 2 minus 2 multiplied by this percentage to get the new scale. But since this is 1, we can just simply use the percentage. Right, so it's 100%, and then as this decreases, will be a percentage of that. Okay, so anyways, let's run this game and see if that worked. It's not quite working. Let's pause it for a second. See, the HP, the scale is not being updated. So something is not changing here. Right, so that's a simple mistake. But basically we don't want, because I'm sending the state to different, I'm sending this state machine to different states. here. So none of this actually matters because we already went to a different state. So I am going to move this to the bottom so we don't run this until the end. Try that again. Okay, you can see that the health bar has decreased. Maybe a bit too much. Okay, let's see what's going on here. It's 0.1. Just 10, so it's just sort of outside of our view here. That's why it's not showing up in there. Okay, so that's something we'll have to fix as well. We want to make sure that the health bar stays invisible to the player. Now, one thing we can definitely do is, well, what happened was actually when we moved the player, the camera moves kind of like this, and then it's because the health bar is staying in the same position, can't see it anymore. So the easy fix is just dragging the health HP bar into the main camera so it sort of moves with the camera. Okay, good. So right, so that's pretty much working. I do want to add one more thing, which is I want to add a background to this HP bar, how much health he's lost. Right. And I'm just going to reuse the same image. So that's duplicate the HP bar. I'm going to make this HP bar background. And I want to now make HP bar the child of HP bar background, so that when we're scaling this, we don't scale the background, because if it's the other way around, then the background gets scaled down as well. Now it's not obvious, but let me change one thing, then it'll be very obvious to you next. So go to color and change the alpha to sort of, I don't know, 100. Now when we scale to HP bar, you can see that the background stays at the same scale. Otherwise, if we have it the other way around, let me just show it to you. When we scale this, the background is being scaled as well because it's a child object, then we can't actually see it. Okay, let's move that back and just double check and see if we have the right, we're scaling the right object. Right, okay, try that again. Right, yep, good. Slight, actually that's fine. Yeah, that's okay. One thing I did notice is we're setting the scale before sending the game over state. So sometimes you would have a negative scale, which is basically it's still visible there, but I'm not going to worry too much about it. What we can do is we can add something here to set the scale to 0, then we won't have that little bit of HP bar there. Actually, yeah, let's do that. Let's copy set scale, put it here, so when it's game over, we want to just set this to 0, because we don't want any of it. Okay, so that should work pretty well. Let's give it a quick run. All right, great.